Tonight, back on the stand.
Good morning, Ms. McCabe.
Good morning.
Prosecution witness Jennifer McCabe cross-examined by Karen Reed's defense.
It wasn't a lie, no.
Was it true? Was it the truth or a lie?
It wasn't a lie.
Why she's being accused of lying to federal agents. Plus, the defense focuses on her conversations with other witnesses.
We both know what happened. We don't have to have a story. There is no story. There's what happened.
What today's grilling could mean for the defense's bid to point the finger at third-party culprits. And Karen Reed responds to McCabe's testimony.
Another witness, another instance of perjury, or instances, I'd say.
What she had to say outside of court. Canton Confidential, the Karen Reed murder trial, starts now.
We begin with a key prosecution witness in this high-profile case taking center stage yet again. Good evening, everyone. I'm J.C. Monahan.
And I'm Glenn Jones. Jennifer McCabe was back on the stand today, but this time she spent hours cross-examined by defense attorney Alan Jackson. One witness, a lot to unpack. Our Melanie Mendez is covering it all outside Norfolk Superior Court in Denham. Melanie, this was a marathon day for Jennifer McCabe.
It absolutely was, Glenn and JC. You put it perfectly. A marathon day, hours and hours on the stand. Now, here's the thing. We know she is a central figure in this case. We heard a whole lot from her in the first trial. But the woman that we saw on the stand today came across very, very differently. She was friendly. She was smiling, very agreeable throughout her testimony. Now, here's the thing. There was clearly an effort that was being made for her to connect with the jury. She was making eye contact with them, often smiling broadly when she did that. And she still, though, managed to dodge some of the most important questions in the case. So take a look for yourself. Jennifer McCabe, a key witness in this case, back on the stand. McCabe, one of three women who found John O'Keefe's body outside the Albert home. Her sister, Nicole Albert, the owner of that home. McCabe was questioned about several times where she was speaking with other witnesses and law enforcement involved in the case. Notably, McCabe saying that after O'Keefe's body was taken from outside the home, she spent hours inside the Albert home with her family discussing what had happened. She says it was during that time inside the home that she remembered Reed saying, "I hit him, I hit him, I hit him." McCabe testified about sitting down with Kerry Roberts to write a timeline of the morning O'Keefe was found. On cross-examination, defense attorney Alan Jackson started by asking McCabe when she last spoke with witness Kerry Roberts and pressed her as to whether the two discussed the case and collaborated on their testimony.
Neither one of you, your good friend Kerry Roberts and you, have ever discussed either of your testimonies between that time and this time.
No, we've discussed the case, and we've discussed what happened that moment. That's my story.
As you said, that's your story, correct?
Not my story. It's the truth.
Noticeably different this time around, McCabe's demeanor on the stand. Jackson asking McCabe about several recent meetings she had with the DA's office in anticipation of Wednesday's testimony.
Was there any discussion about crafting your testimony in any way to suggest a softer approach?
No.
She was also asked about an interview with federal law enforcement at her home in which she asked for time to get ready before the interview started, but in that time made several phone calls. McCabe later admitting she misinformed investigators about who she'd called.
You also left out that you contacted Brian Albert himself, correct?
Yes, my brother-in-law. I didn't lie to them. I had forgotten who I had called.
And all of a sudden you had an epiphany right after they walked out the door?
Yes.
During a particularly tense exchange toward the end of the day, Jackson pressed McCabe on her testimony, telling the jury today that she heard Karen Reed say, "I hit him 3 times, but never mentioning anything like that when she testified before the grand jury just weeks after the incident happened.
In your entire grand jury testimony, you never said, "My client said the words, 'I hit him.'" 12 separate times you were asked to repeat words that my client said, and you recounted those words truthfully and honestly at that time, correct?
Correct.
Because you were under the same oath that you're under today.
Correct.
And things were much fresher in your mind then than they are now 3.5 years later.
Karen Reed reacting to McCabe's testimony on her way out of court.
It's just more of the same. Inconsistencies, every statement's different. under oath, not under oath, with the cops are all wrong. This is very similar to what we saw a year ago.
Do you think that she colluded with why is she so inconsistent?
Because she's lying.
So on her way out of court, Karen Reed was also asked, did you ever ask Jennifer McCabe to Google search how long to die in cold? And she said, I did not, and I certainly did not tell her to make the search at 2:27 a.m. either. Now, Jennifer McCabe will be back on the witness stand again. Alan Jackson saying he still has a few more hours of cross-examination to go. She will be back for her third day of testimony on Friday. Glenn, JC, back to you.
3 days on the stand last time in the first trial. We're joined now by NBC 10 Boston chief legal analyst Michael Coyne. Michael, can we just turn back for just a moment, because Alan Jackson was asking about how much prep did Jennifer McCabe have in the DA's office before she took the stand this time? Is that normal? What can or can't they do? Because there was a tonal shift in how she presented herself.
But that could be a self-assessment as well. You know, every witness is prepped for their testimony, and that just simply means walking them through, having them understand what the dynamics of the courtroom are, how to respond to questions and not get angry. It's very difficult, I think, for a lot of witnesses not to take it personally, but it would be malpractice for either the prosecution or the defense to not prepare their witnesses for what for many is a very difficult experience.
So then why did he ask?
I think he thinks it's going to land with the jury. And somehow they're going to feel that this is some lower level than conspiracy. I don't see it. And I think what we're going to find is when his witnesses are there, we're going to see tit for tat. These witnesses are also prepped by the defendant now. And prepped just simply means trying to make the witness comfortable on the stand with what for many is an extraordinarily difficult experience.
Yes.
Like Jackson's cross-examination in the first trial, he has been picking apart differences between what Jennifer McCabe is saying now and what she said on the stand or to investigators before. Here's a listen.
Okay, jurors, ignore the comments of counsel. Ask one question, Mr. Jackson.
You said that she said, could I have hit him? Did I hit him in the presence of the female EMT? That's what you testified to under oath at the grand jury, isn't it?
Yes, because she also said that.
So there was that point. There was also this point about not telling the federal investigators who came to see her who she had called on the telephone before she began talking to them. I wonder if you think this is effective by Alan Jackson, or does he run the risk of bullying the witness, where the jury starts to feel sympathetic for her?
You know, the jury always feels sympathetic for the witness, not the lawyer, because we are seen as the bullies, the aggressors. So you have to play that line very, very carefully.
How is he doing in that regard?
I'm not so sure that he's doing it as effectively as he would like. You would actually think the big-time Hollywood superstar lawyer would be a complete mismatch against the basketball mom from the suburbs. I think she's more than held her own, and I think at times that sympathy, there are jurors in all likelihood who are thinking, well, boy, would he do that to me if I was on the stand? Others might well be taking it as, well, she's still not telling the entire truth about some of the earlier statements. So it's actually a toss-up as to how that jury is receiving it in its entirety.
To that point, Alan Jackson talked a lot about how much time Jennifer McCabe spent with other people going over the timeline, reviewing what happened that day. Again, we know that the defense is trying to point fingers at other people, that there was a conspiracy. But to your point, as I was sitting there, I was like, well, I would talk to my friends and family, too. In this case, it happens to be a lot of people on the witness list. But in general, that's who I would go to talk about it. So, again, hit or a miss for the for the defense. Again,
I don't think it's as effective as he's expecting, simply because it is a shared experience that is horrific from the standpoint of how a fun night ended just so badly with the good friend dying, and now the friends family and friends are getting together to say, well, what happened? Was he sick? What was the problem? I don't think it's as effective to suggest that they should have no communications once this event happens. And I don't think it's going to get them where they want to go, which is trying to argue that third-party culprit defense.
Yep. McCabe was also asked on cross about her meeting with friends and family in the hours after John O'Keefe was discovered in the snow. He asked whether they separated themselves from each other. Let's listen to a clip that discusses that.
You're not a professional investigator, correct?
I'm not, no.
You're not a trained investigator.
No.
You're certainly not a homicide detective, correct?
No.
None of you witnesses were ever separated, were you, that morning?
There was no reason to separate us.
I'm not asking you if there was a reason, okay? I'm asking you whether or not factually anybody was separated in that house. Or was everybody allowed to talk amongst themselves?
I was with my family. We didn't need to be allowed.
NBC 10 courtroom insider Sue O'Connell joining the conversation now. So to this point, Sue and Michael, here Jackson is putting the onus on the witness that they should have separated themselves immediately in the presence of law enforcement. But really, that should be on police. They're the ones who should do that. So again, start with you, Sue. Why? How did it feel in the courtroom in that position where he keeps needling that?
Well, he not only did that, he also kind of kept asking her when Sergeant Lank was, what was Lank doing that when you called to see him, he had to put on his gear and he had to get there and he was in the, she's like, I don't know what he was doing. That wasn't my job to know that was doing. I was expecting an objection from Brennan on that. I mean, I think what Jackson was doing was arguing or cross-examining the other Jen McCabe from the last trial, and he was trying to have her react in some way. And he might have been, to your point, Michael, doing a balance here. If I can get her off her feet a little bit, maybe I can get something from her. And he was doing a balance of if it was worth doing it at the risk of losing the jury or not. But it wasn't really getting any traction. There was a lot of this cross that didn't get traction.
Michael, one of the most memorable things you said at this table during the first trial is that law enforcement was not covering itself in glory. Is this another example of that?
Absolutely. But the witnesses should have been instructed not to talk about it. They should have been interviewed separately. But there was a lot of time spent now trying to develop this whole point about she's fabricating the I hit him. I've already seen testimony in this case from an outtake from an interview that the defendant did where she admitted that, okay, I said I hit him, but I didn't think I said it as often as law enforcement says I did. So for at least an hour today, an hour plus, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, all I kept hearing was, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. Even if you want to argue about it and parse it the way we did, is that hitting with the jury and reminding them of that earlier testimony that was introduced by her in the outtake from the interview that she admitted it. So there's a lot of capital being spent that I think unnecessarily about this issue of did she say it because she's admitted it now.
All right, Sue, Michael, stay there. Don't go anywhere. They'll be sticking around, so we'll see you in just a bit. But coming up next, we dig deeper into the defense's cross-examination of Jennifer McCabe. She wasn't the first prosecution witness to be impeached by the defense, but is this strategy working? A legal expert, a new one, joining us to offer his take.
Don't miss any of the Karen Reed murder trial. Get the full recap of what happened in court, expert analysis, and what we could see next. This is coverage you won't see anywhere else. Canton Confidential, weeknights at 7 on NBC 10 Boston.
I don't need to see my transcript. I know what I know, and I know what I remember. So
that's not my question. I'm not asking what you remember now. I'm asking how you testified a year ago now.
Whether I said it was as we're fighting over silly words, whether I said as I got out of the car, we were there.
Words matter. They matter a lot.
Let's get back to breaking down Jennifer McCabe's testimony today at Karen Reed's retrial. Defense attorney Alan Jackson was clearly focused on impeaching Jennifer McCabe on the stand.
So this continues an ongoing pattern by the defense. Joining us now is Martin Radner. He's a Michigan-based attorney following this case on his YouTube channel, Brother Counsel. All right, let's talk about the defense's strategy of impeaching witnesses. We saw it again today with McCabe. Do you think it's a strategy that is working?
Well, we understand that this time, Jennifer McCabe is coming across much more soft, as Alan Jackson himself pointed out, much more compassionate, much more controlled. We're definitely seeing that, so it's a little bit less combative. However, once you get past that optics and the jury's actually thinking about the evidence or thinking about the facts in this case, and then they start thinking about the inconsistencies, they think about how Alan Jackson lays out this foundation that this is something Karen Reed, that she would say to this EMT, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, affirmatively, not in a question. And that's what Jennifer McCabe heard. And this was so memorable. It was so unforgettable. It was so something that she would never overlook. And yet, in the grand jury testimony, she overlooks it. So it's a very strong point for cross-examination on impeaching Jennifer McCabe's credibility. So absolutely. And then remember, number two in this case is the Chloe. Where is Chloe? After all, there's chaos in the front yard. There's lights. There's screaming by Karen Reed. There's screaming by Kerry Roberts. Jennifer McCabe bursts into the bedroom, and she has no recollection at all about anything to do with Chloe. And remember, Chloe's going to play a very important part in this case. So that was something else that Alan Jackson was able to bring out, which throws a lot of questions about this case.
You know, on your first point, Jackson dramatically handed over 200 pages of her grand jury testimony and told her to find where she said it. Of course, she didn't actually go through the 200 pages, but it was a very dramatic act in court. Let's switch to the prosecution's strategy. They had McCabe testify right after Ian Whiffen, the Celebrite expert, who testified about the time of the Google searches. For so many people who even follow this trial superficially, they know about that "How's Long to Die in the Cold" Google search that the prosecution is trying to debunk happened at 2:27 a.m. What do you think about their positioning of having that expert testimony right before Jen McCabe gets on the stand?
Oh, it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. And you got to have them back to back. And in fact, to have Ian Whiffen come first before Jennifer McCabe, that is just great strategy, because if you have Jennifer McCabe go first and then she's able to be impeached by Alan Jackson, showing the Celebrite records which show that this search was done at 2:27 in the morning, and it does show in a deleted state without any sort of explanation to the jury, that can look very damaging. But when you have Ian Whiffen go first and explain how the search never happened at 2:27 and that the deleted state was not because of any action that Jennifer McCabe did, well, then in that case, the jury already understands this before Jennifer McCabe takes the stand, and it's a lot more believable. So I thought that was a great ordering, great strategy by Hank Brennan right there.
What about Brennan using video clips as he lays out the Commonwealth's case against Karen Reed? He worked in police dash cam video today. It's a lot different than trial one. Do you think it's more effective?
Oh, yeah. Well, the dash cam we saw plenty about in trial one, so that's always effective to be able to identify what people are doing, where they are, who they're talking to. So that's always very compelling and effective. But also this part, when we're going to be seeing clips of Karen Reed herself and all these documentaries and these docuseries, that's really changing this trial, I think, a lot. I think the jury can already start to get a feeling of who Karen Reed is, the type of personality she is. It's almost like she's testifying without taking the stand. So that was probably a big mistake, that she was talking to all these news outlets and doing these documentaries. And those clips Hank Brennan is using to his advantage. And I think that's also something that's going to be very different and weighing on the jury's mind about how they're actually taking in who Karen Reed actually is as a person, and maybe making some judgments based on that.
Martin Radner, we appreciate your insight. It's so great having you. We hope to see you again before this trial is over. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on, Glenn and JC. Good luck to you.
All right. We're back now with Michael Coyne and Sue O'Connell. So no court tomorrow, but Jennifer McCabe will be back on the stand again on Friday. Maybe we should pick up where Martin left off, because he did see Jackson's cross as slightly more effective in the eyes of the jury than you do. But I guess that just goes to show it's really in the eye of the beholder how they're going to evaluate something like that.
Want a different opinion, get a different lawyer. So, but no, I mean, you know, and there's a jury instruction that says if a witness has lied on anything, you are free to disbelieve the entirety of their testimony. And so there are problems with the testimony. The advantage is, I thought it could have been a lot worse. And so right now she's holding her own. I think what we'll see then as we move forward to the redirect on Friday, I think Attorney Brennan will focus on the fact that in Karen Reed's time of need, she turned to two people who she believed were friends, and they're the ones that manufactured the framing of all of this evidence and the fabrication. I just don't think it's plausible, and I think that's what he'll focus on redirect.
We have a whole nother day, fully, no doubt, with Jennifer McCabe. Thank you both, Sue and Michael, very much. Again, we can talk about everything we're going to offer you here, right here on Canton Confidential. And if you have any questions about this case, keep sending them our way. The email is on your screen, canton.confidential@nbcuni.com. We'll answer as many questions as we can.
And remember to join us on Canton Confidential, the Karen Reed murder trial, every weeknight at 7. We'll have a full recap of the latest developments from court, as well as legal analysis. Plus, episodes will be streaming on Peacock. This is Canton Confidential, the Karen Reed murder trial.